These are my biggest takeaways from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. This book was tough to get through. It felt like I was back in school and I was doing homework. I did glean some useful information from here. This material I feel is especially useful if you're in sales, a public figure working on attracting others to you, kind of like what I'm doing with this podcast, or being an everyday consumer and knowing when someone is trying to sell you on something. These are some of my biggest takeaways from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. The first quote: "One favorite and profitable tactic of certain compliance professionals is to give something before asking for a return favor." This is on page 49, and this is a great sales tactic. The next quote: "Even though they had committed themselves under anonymous circumstances, the act of writing down their first judgments caused them to resist the influence of contradictory new data and to remain consistent with their preliminary choices." This is on page 72. And this goes hand in hand with first impressions, or sometimes what I tell people, like when they say something right out and then they kind of try to roll it back in, or like kind of try to take it back, I tell them, if that's the first thing you said, that's what you meant. Moving on, the next quote: "The general idea is to pave the way for a full line distribution by starting with a small order. Look at it this way: when a person assigned an order for your merchandise, even though the profit is so small, it hardly compensates for the time and effort of making the call. He is no longer a prospect. He is a customer." That's on page 64. The next quote: "Oh, those harmless concessions. We've already seen how apparently trifling commitments can lead to further consistent behavior. As a commitment device, a written declaration has some great advantages," and that's on page 67. I feel this also applies if you sign up online for like an email list or a subscription. As big examples. Signing up makes it real as opposed to committing superfluously. The next quote: "No matter which variety of lowballing is used, the sequence is the same. An advantage is offered that includes favorable purchase decision. Then, sometime after the decision has been made, but before the bargain is sealed, the original purchase advantage is definitely removed," which is not cool. That's on page 85. An example that comes to mind is like, "Sign up now at this discounted price for Verizon Fios, which includes a year of Netflix. But then after a year, you pay the full monthly regular price, which is like probably an extra $50, an extra $100. I think that's what he meant by that quote. The next quote: "What if physical appearance is not much of an issue? After all, most people possess average looks. Are there other factors that can be used to produce liking? As both researchers and compliance professionals know, there are several, and one of the most influential is similarity. We like people who are similar to us." In this particular chapter, he talks about how looks, person's looks, like if they're particularly beautiful, male or female, will attract you more to them. But this is kind of the caveat here, where if there are similarities, then that's another way that you can go ahead and kind of bring people to you. I think that's fascinating, That quote was on page 148. If you enjoyed this material, please support both the author and myself by buying this book through the provided Amazon link.